time being 3 minutes after 1, I welcome everybody and wish you a good afternoon to this meeting of the Randwick Local Planning Panel. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the various lands we occupy for this meeting, the Aboriginal people, their spirits and ancestors. We pay our respects to elders past and present. The meeting today is to consider the determination of 2 development applications. We will deal with them in the order shown on the agenda. The panel members for this meeting today are myself, Lindsay Fletcher as the independent chair, Jan Morell and Peter Rooney as the independent expert members, and the community member is Michelle Finnegan. The meeting is being held by video conference due to the COVID-19 precautions. As the panel chair, I'm requesting that you be considerate and respectful of each other and remain on mute until I ask you to speak at the meeting. I also request that none of you interject while another person is speaking, otherwise I'll have to request that you no longer participate in the meeting. The panel operates in terms of a code of conduct and operating guidelines, which have been modified to facilitate the effective functioning of the panel during the COVID restrictions. The temporary changes are available on Council's website. As you've probably noted, the public meeting will be recorded and a copy will be placed on the Council's website following the meeting. If that is of concern to you on privacy grounds, then I suggest you take it into consideration in your decision to make a public statement before the panel today. In terms of the code, general declarations of interest have been provided before the meeting by all panel members, as well as a specific declaration of interest in relation to the matters being considered today. I can confirm that all declarations of interest have been received and that no members of the panel have declared a conflict of interest on either of the items for determination at this meeting. Those signed declarations will be available to view through the website by tomorrow afternoon. I also wish to advise that all members of the public addressing the panel today must declare prior to commencing their address any political contributions or donations exceeding $1,000 made over the past 2 years to any political party or candidate who contested the last ordinary election of council. Our usual practice is to allow each speaker 3 minutes to present, including speakers representing community groups, individuals and the applicant. If you've requested to speak, your address to the panel will be recorded. You'll be given a warning about 30 seconds before your time limit, and I do have a limited discretion to allow extra time if it's appropriate. We will first hear from councillors, although I don't think there's any councillors have actually registered to address us, followed by members of the public, and then finally from the applicant in each case. The panel has been provided with a copy of all the submissions received in response to the public exhibition of the application and any late submissions received up until I think this morning. Therefore, there is no need for speakers to repeat the points made in those submissions. I ask that each speaker be heard in silence while they are addressing the panel and that courtesy and respect be observed throughout the meeting. There is to be no personal criticism directed at any speaker or council staff. Any such criticism would be contrary to the panel's code of conduct and will not be accepted. The panel members may ask questions of the speakers to clarify their understanding of what is being said. After hearing from all speakers, the panel will adjourn to debate the matters and to make its determinations. If more information is required by the panel, the decision today may be to defer either for a further public meeting or for the matter to be dealt with electronically. The panel decision and recording will be made available on Council's website as soon as practicable. Usually it's by late the same day or certainly by tomorrow. There is to be no recording of this meeting other than the official recording. As I said, we have 2 matters before us. The first matter is development application DA 640 of 2021 for 451 Beecham Road in Maroubra. I have only one person registered to address the panel on this matter. That's Mr. Andrew Connor. Mr. Connor, are you there? I think I saw your, yes. Again, I invite you to speak, but before you do so, please say your name and for the benefit of the recording, and indicate whether you've made any relevant political donations. So, Mr. Connor, please proceed.
Yeah, hi, my name's Andrew Connor. I'm a registered planner from the Planning Institute of Australia, and I work as a consultant planner based in the ACT, but we do work across New South Wales as well. I haven't, nor has our company made any contributions, political contributions over the last 12 months. So, okay. Look, thank you, panel and council, for the opportunity to briefly present to you on, or address you on, the DA for Beecham Street. I'm representing 4 property owners who are adjacent to this proposed development site and the most affected by the proposed development as it stands. These are 449 Beecham Street, 453, 2B White Street and 2 White Street. As you will be aware, obviously looking at the DA and the locality plan, these sites are all adjoining the property itself. They all share a boundary with the proposed development site. I don't want to go into too much detail because I know there's been a number of significant submissions made on the DA, which the panel will have reviewed prior to making this assessment. But I'd just like to reiterate the concerns that neighbouring properties have to do with the proposed development as it stands. It is our view that it is a significant overdevelopment of the site in terms of bulk, scale and setbacks, which by virtue of its scale and size and building setbacks has a number of adverse impacts on adjacent properties. These range from visual privacy interface issues to solar access impacts on neighbouring properties, a number of which have not been adequately addressed or considered in the applicant's development application before you. We note that the solar diagrams are not, in our experience, adequate to conduct a full and proper assessment under the provisions of the Act, along with FSR diagrams or GFA diagrams, which appear to be omitted. We support the recommendation for refusal as presented to the panel today by council's officers, and we agree with a number of the assessment points made in those reasons for refusal. As indicated, the neighbours in their submissions, they would consider a reasonable development of the site, which considers their privacy and solar access issues addressed. But the application before you, we believe, is an unacceptable development outcome with a range of associated poor impacts on these properties. Going beyond that, obviously, as the panel's aware, there are some significant breaches to the DCP in terms of non-compliances with minimum width frontages controls and obviously the setback controls, which I've already touched on. So I will keep it brief, but I just want to reiterate to the panel that the neighbours are extremely concerned about the proposed development as it stands and support the recommendation for refusal as it is presented to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. I should add that we've not only had the benefit of the reports, but we've also had a briefing from council officers prior to the meeting, and we've inspected the locality, so we're aware of the relationship to adjoining properties. Panel members, do you have any questions of Mr. Connor?
No, no questions.
No? So thank you, Mr. Connor.
Thank you very much.
I should now ask whether panel members have any questions for council officers in relation to this matter. We are aware that the matter is on appeal, so it's before the courts. And we, as I say, we had the benefit of a briefing earlier, but are there any questions at this stage of council officers?
No questions.
No. Thank you. Well, that concludes that matter. We will, as I said earlier, adjourn after we've dealt with the next matter and debate the determination of the application, and our determination will be published on council's website. So moving to the second item before us today, it's development application 576 of 2021 for numbers 1 to 5A Knowles Avenue in Matraville. It's a development on council controlled land, Crown land, under Council's control, and is a council development proposal. For that reason, the council has appointed an independent planner to assess the report. That's Ms. Ros Reid, and I think Ros is available if we have any questions later. We have 4 speakers registered on this matter, 3 residents opposing the development, so we'll deal with them first, and Mr. Crawford, the architect, is also registered to speak. So the first speaker is Kate Merrow. Kate, I can see you're there. Can you unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to address us.
Okay, good afternoon, panel members. I'm Kate Myro. I'm representing the residents of 12 Flanders Avenue, Matraville, and neither I or any family members have made any political donations in the last 2 years. We're seeking changes to the design and the use of the proposed facility to ensure that the development does not give rise to unreasonable traffic, parking and amenity impacts on surrounding residential uses. We ask the panel recommends condition 83 be amended to reduce the maximum occupancy to 60 persons. Based on the limited information available around the proposed use, we hold the view that a precautionary approach should be adopted with regards to occupancy numbers, particularly given the development relies wholly on on-street parking in surrounding low-density residential streets and is not well serviced by public transport. As outlined in Council's report, the pre-COVID occupancy of the existing facility was around 30 persons. 60 people would be consistent with the largest event held at the site in 2018 and aligns with the maximum occupant numbers for other community facilities throughout the LGA. The council report references that there was only one event in 2019 with 100 people in attendance. However, it didn't detail the parking demand or traffic impacts for this event. The amended traffic and parking assessment report has a number of significant limitations. It relies on on-street parking availability in locations unlikely to be used by patrons due to lack of connectivity and distance from the site, topography and ease of access. It provides a guesstimate for projected demand, and it does not sufficiently consider the development's traffic impacts, its impacts on the planned intersection upgrade, or the development, how the development may further exacerbate current road safety issues in the locality. Flanders Avenue is the first street on the left when heading south of the site. It's a cul-de-sac and doesn't perform well even with marginal increases in traffic flows. Further, there is a well-reported road safety issue associated with obstructed sight lines for the left out and right out turn from Flanders Avenue to Knowles Avenue, which hasn't been satisfactorily addressed in the assessment and is likely to be further exacerbated by the proposed development. We also note that it doesn't appear that Council's Traffic Committee has considered the development. We ask that panel recommend open style boundary fencing and gates along the southern, western and northern property boundaries. This would mitigate opportunities for antisocial behaviour and the site being used for rough sleeping outside of operating hours. The boundary fencing would also provide an added safety benefit for patrons to the site by providing a physical barrier to the intersection adjacent to the site. We ask that the panel recommends a condition to amend the design of the covered outdoor space on the building's southern elevation so that it physically limits the opportunity for large groups to congregate in this part of the development. Condition 86 seeks to limit the use of the covered outdoor space to 40 persons to align with the recommendations of the application's environmental noise assessment report. Given council intends to hire the facility out to multiple users and there's no on-site manager proposed, condition 86 will be ineffective in ensuring the development satisfies the noise criteria and does not give rise to amenity impacts on surrounding residents. We recommend the depth of the space be reduced by at least 2 metres or alternatively deleted. Lastly, we ask the panel. Yeah,
sorry, I'll just ask you to wrap up quickly if you can. We do have a copy of your recent submission. Thank you.
Thank you. Lastly, we ask that the panel recommend a reduction to the hours operation to improve amenity for surrounding residential developments. Thank you.
Thank you. So, panel members, any questions of Kate Merrow at this stage? Michelle? Sorry, Michelle's trying to say something, but she's on mute.
Yeah,
so,
I do.
Michelle?
Kate, when you're suggesting that the hours of operation are decreased, what would you suggest the hours were of operation were that are reasonable?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, it was just something similar to what they're using at the Burney Street Community facility. So it's 10 till, I'll have to, yeah, so it was 9 till 8:15 Monday to Friday and 10 till 4 Saturdays and Sundays.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Peter, I think you had a question as well.
I did. Thank you, Kate, for your presentation. When you suggest that the occupancy, if I can call it that, be limited to 60 persons, can you just unpack that? I didn't quite get the rationale behind that.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean the current.
Well, why that number rather than 70 or 90 or whatever? Yeah.
So so the rationale was based on the demand of the current, like the maximum. So it'd be double what the average current occupancy is. So we have significant concerns, as you can realise, around the potential impacts of this development on, particularly on parking and traffic, given this it's relying wholly on street parking availability. So this would allow for, it's aligned with what the maximum occupancy was back in 2018, which was in council's report and in the traffic report. So, and then there was one instance of a event of 100 people, but you know, we don't know what the impacts of that were, and we don't believe that the traffic and parking assessment has sufficiently considered the impacts of the development. We don't also know at this point really how the community is going to really seek to use this facility, other than the fact that, you know, you're going to have this new whiz-bang facility that is probably going to be very attractive to a lot of community groups, and the patronage is going to increase quite significantly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jan, did you have any questions? Or?
No, it's already been asked. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, Kate, for your presentation. The second speaker we have listed is Carolyn Hook. Is Carolyn there?
Yes, I am. Hi. I just got to thank Kate. Kate has really summed it up very well, our concerns, because I'm another resident of Flanders Avenue. And
right.
The parking and the limit of the number of applicants who are going to attend the functions will be interesting to us, because sometimes it's very busy and other times it's not. And parking can present a problem already around this area with when the hall is in use. And the other question I had was about, you've got birthday parties as a usage. Now, what age group would it go up to? Is the question I have for council. And in the initial assessment that you did an acoustic report on my property at 40 floor, but the noise is worse inside the house than it is outside on the street at times. And has that been taken into consideration as well? Because I wasn't aware of anyone testing their acoustic noise.
Yep, they are questions that we can put to the applicant's representative, the architect. I'm not sure if he's in a position to answer those, but we will take those on board.
But that noise can be a problem, because the noise does travel along here. And the other thing was that we had, what I had concerns about was the lack of monitoring. I know you put in your report you're going to have CTV, but you've got no idea what can go on in this locality at times, if you know what I mean. So who's going to police it after 9 o'clock, or as Kate said, limit to 8:15? Because there's a lot of people who roam around this area at times, you know, and even Barwon Park, which is across the road, as you take your grandchildren there, it's been wrecked by kids hanging out and throwing bottles of beer and cigarettes in the playground area as well. So if this happens here, we don't particularly like it as residents.
Okay, so thank you for that, Carolyn. Panel members, do you have any questions of Carolyn?
Yeah, I do. Carolyn, I missed your second question. Was it something to do with the age of the people who are using
what age? You got your children's birthday parties. What age does it go up to? Because it's not specified in the report.
Thank you.
I think I suspect it's open for birthday parties generally, not just children's ones necessarily.
Well, you should still be
That's a question, as I say, we'll put to the applicant, who's represented by their architect today. So find out what the brief is.
It's only got children's birthday parties, so what age group does it end at, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. We'll take that on board. Thank you. No other questions from panel members?
No.
Thank you. So thank you, Carolyn, for your presentation. The third speaker I have is Clay Chigwidden. I can see you're there, Clay, so can I ask you again to firstly declare whether you've made any political donations and then perhaps make your presentation.
So my name is Clay Chigwidden. I'm a resident at 7 Posieres Avenue, and I haven't made any financial contributions to any political parties.
Thank you.
So look, right to go?
Sure.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, panel and council offers, for having your local community here today. You know, I really like to think that this for you isn't just a formality, because for me and my fellow community members, this is our chance to have our concerns addressed and our voices heard. Together as a community, we'll never go wrong with infrastructure. This isn't our issue. Although there are concerns, I appreciate we can't just say no, but let's work together and get it right. For the next 2 minutes, I ask that you change the way that you think, you change your perspective, that you put yourselves into our shoes. What I ask is to look deeper than a spreadsheet, to look past a report and really feel these communities' concerns. In the numerous submissions, there are common denominators: real life, real time, real issues from real people. We need a common sense approach more than anything. Our main issues are the noise, privacy, safety and antisocial behaviour. Having an acoustic report commenting on background noise doesn't take into account real life events of parties where people will be drunk, screaming, loitering around as there is no security fence, having visible access into the backyards and bedrooms of many homes. The parking. You have your community screaming, saying that the parking is extremely difficult at the best of times, something that you'd only know from living there, not from a report that takes into account 2 days of a 365-day period, not from a report which says it's okay for an older resident or a child to be carried in the pouring rain 2 streets down 400 metres away. The traffic. A report isn't going to tell you what we've experienced. The report from the TTPP made mention of 2 recent car crashes, nothing of the numerous side swipes, the time 8 Posieres had their car written off, and nothing of the 2 cars ending in the front lawns of Posieres Avenue, one being mine. This is going to be Council's second biggest community hall with the longest opening hours set on the smallest parcel of land in the most highly dense residential area where safety concerns have already been identified by Council. To put into perspective, Kensington Hall Community 2, which has the same capacity, the same opening hours, is set on 40,000 square metres. Our location is 600 square metres. But there is a fix to this. I submit you change the opening hours to be consistent with Burnie Park Community. The reduced hours will stop the noise issues, security concerns and antisocial behaviour. I submit you change the design to have a gate around the outside. Although you're after an inviting environment, but is that environment worth the safety, security and the livelihood of the people it will affect? The parking is a major issue. I submit you decrease the capacity numbers to 60. This is consistent with the current numbers as mentioned by the reports, and there'll be no further strain to the community. I'm here to tell you that we're not here to say no. I'm here to tell you that there is common ground. There is mutual understanding and we can make it work. There was an old motto I recently came across called Semper Prima, meaning always first, community always first. When taking into account our concerns and making a decision which will impact us for the foreseeable future, don't read those reports, hear our voices, see our perspective and feel what we're going through. I ask you to stand by your motto, Semper Prima, and live by your 3 waves. Represent balance, an underlying commitment to teamwork, and really foster this cooperative partnership between our local community. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. I can assure you we don't take any of the matters before us lightly, and we do understand the concerns that are raised by local residents. Panel members, any questions of Clay
Not from
at
me.
this stage?
No, thank you. No.
Jan? No. There's no questions from the other panel members, so thank you for your presentation. I now move to the final speaker who's representing the applicant. It's the project architect, Mr. Sam Crawford. Sam, I take it you've heard the concerns raised by the three previous speakers, and no doubt you've also read the report and have an idea of the broader community concerns raised in that. Can I firstly ask you to confirm whether you've made any political donations, and then give you the opportunity to address the panel and respond?
Sure. Thank you, Chair and panel. I can confirm that I've made no political donations, nor has my practice. Yeah, am I able to share the screen?
Yes, that's fine. Hopefully.
Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, I can, although it's quite small. Oh, that's better. Yep.
Great. Thank you very much. We have worked closely with the Randwick City Council staff in the design of the Matraville Youth and Cultural Hall. The site of the hall is located in the northern sector of Matraville, just to the north of Barham Park. It is located on the corner of Poitiers and Knowles Avenue. Immediately to the east, there is a row of detached houses. To the south, a public reserve and on-street easement. And the existing hall is surrounded by 17 mature trees located on the subject site, including banksia, blackbutt and paperbark. In particular, there are mature trees on Knowles Avenue, including a large and mature blackbutt tree. The site falls 1.5 metres from the northeast to the southwest. Here you can see the existing hall. Our brief is to replace the hall with a building of approximately the same size, which ends up being 350 square metres, catering to the local community for dance, exercise and yoga classes, with associated toilet facilities, storage, kitchen and breakout space to the south. Accessible entry is via Knowles Avenue, with a secondary access from Poitiers Avenue. The plan arrangement of the building, in particular the entry location, enables the retention of 15 of the 17 native trees on the site. Excavation has been limited to the areas shown in yellow so as to minimise damage to tree roots. The height of the proposed hall is 2 metres lower than the adjacent dwelling to the east. As you can see in the lower elevation here, it sits just below the eaves of that dwelling. The interior of the hall is predominantly timber, the exterior painted brick for ease of maintenance. A continuous wraparound roof element and entry canopy breaks down the scale of the hall. South light is provided to high-level polycarbonate walling and the covered outdoor space overlooking the public reserve. Thank you.
Okay, can I perhaps start by giving you the opportunity to respond to the two questions asked by, I think, Carolyn Hawke, and that is about the ages to be catered for at the birthday parties that are mentioned as one of the...
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have any information in your brief as to what that might be?
No, our brief has always been the understanding it would be children's birthday parties, but I don't know that there's been an age limit set. I'd have to defer to council on that. Thank you.
I think the second question that she raised was about noise impact within the dwellings, neighbouring dwellings. She mentioned the acoustic report has taken measurements and made predictions about noise levels outside, but do you have any comment to make?
I guess I'm not an acoustic engineer, but I can surmise that the noise within a dwelling would be less than the noise outside of the dwelling, given that the dwelling has walls and windows. The building's been designed to minimise noise, and it's actually been designed to deal with the noise of 160 people, noting that the occupancy proposed is only 100. So we're well within the noise limits that are required of the site. And there is a blank wall, no windows at all facing the neighbouring dwelling to the east.
Okay. I've got one or two other matters, but I'll let other people ask questions first. So panel members, are there any questions of Mr. Crawford?
I just have one. I just wanted to confirm, it's my understanding that the footprint of the building is the same.
It's not exactly the same. It's largely the same.
No, sorry. Yeah, in terms of size, I mean.
Oh, in terms of size, my understanding that the existing facility is a bit over 300 square metres and the proposed is 350.
Right, okay, thank you.
Michelle or Peter?
And sorry, can I just add to that the reason being that the requirements of contemporary toilet facilities and kitchen and storage and the entry space mean that we need slightly more space.
Perhaps you might just respond to the question that was raised about decreasing the size of the outdoor area.
Yeah, I mean, the outdoor area is approximately 75 square metres. It's intended as a breakout space from the main hall, and where kids can let off a bit of steam and after exercising. But it's got an acoustic ceiling on the underside, so to absorb noise. It faces the public reserve. It has a balustrade around it to contain people within that space. And I guess in the age of COVID, it's important to have outdoor space in a public facility so that fresh air is obtainable and doors can be open and children can move in and out freely.
Okay, thank you.
Sam, would you mind taking us back to the slide that said what the brief was?
Sure. Just bear with me a moment while I do that. Are you able to see that now?
Yeah.
Yes.
So dance, exercise classes and indoor sports. And what sort of indoor sports is envisaged?
At the moment, there's indoor soccer is played there. So little kids, 5-year-old kids playing indoor soccer. And then my understanding is that there's dance classes and yoga and exercise classes.
Okay. And Sam, is there potential to actually put an inoffensive fence around the building itself with a gate?
I think it would be a real shame to do that to a public facility. The SEPTED report recommended not having a fence around it. There is motion activated low-level lighting, so that if there are people moving around the building at night, when it's not in use, that lighting will come on. It's not going to be lighting that shines up on neighbouring dwellings, but it will highlight that there are people there. Yeah, the advice that we've received is it's safer not to put a fence around a building like this. And noting also it is a public community hall, and putting a barbed wire fence around it similar to what is there now.
No, I'm not suggesting a barbed wire fence. I'm suggesting something
but even any kind of fence that says the public is not allowed in, it doesn't send a great message to as a public building, I think.
Landscape.
Interestingly, the neighbour immediately to the east requested that we did not put a solid fence to their property. They requested that we put an open palisade fence. So that it's curious that they were concerned about privacy. The landscaping has been designed so that there's no low shrubbery. There's nowhere to hide. The building is laid out in a way that there's very good passive surveillance from Poisieres Avenue and from Knowles Avenue and from the adjacent reserve. And really the landscape scheme has been about maintaining those magnificent native trees that are on the site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Peter?
Sam, I'm just looking at the cross sections, and obviously the proposed hall, the volume of the main hall is, much greater than the existing. You can see the profile of the existing there. Is that because of the nature of that it would be used for indoor ball sports? Is that the reason for that?
Yeah, that's right. The idea is that it's for indoor ball sports, dance classes, those kind of events, and to give a sense of scale and drama to those events, and it also reduces the overall noise within the space. There's significant amounts of sound attenuation within the building structure and the lining of the inside of the hall.
So from what you were saying before, I understand that you said the noise insulation design is designed to deal with 160.
That's right.
Persons.
The brief was originally for 160 people, and it's been designed. The noise attenuation has been designed for the noise emanating from 160 people. But my understanding is that the plan of management limits the occupancy to 100.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Sam.
Jan, did I see you ask? Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Just one question. Your knowledge of these things is far greater than mine, but is there normally CCTV?
Sorry. Yes, there is. I forgot to mention that. There's also CCTV.
Okay, as security.
As security, yep. That's right. Yeah.
Yep. And there would be signs to the effect that there is CCTV. Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, that pretty much covered the additional questions I had, other than a sort of usual question of the applicant, and that is whether, Sam, you on behalf of the applicant had any queries or wanted to address us in relation to the suggested conditions. Is there any of those that are problematic?
I guess each of the conditions limits the public benefit of the facility, limiting the number to 60, given that currently the hall caters to more than 100. It seems unreasonable. This is public land, it's a public facility, it's public money being spent. And yes, local residents will always have concerns, and that's fair enough. But after all, this is a public facility. It would be a great shame to also limit the hours further than they have been. They are very reasonable, being limited to 9 p.m. And the other limitations, putting a fence around the building, I think would also be a great shame. It doesn't send a great message to the youth, but that they're barred from entry or that they're locked out. It forms part of a public reserve, so it's a broader public space that links down to Bowen Park as well.
Yep. Okay.
So just on that point, I did notice when I was out on site, there seems to be a public facility to its south, the Ausgrid site there. What is that used for?
Substation.
There's a substation on Knowles Avenue, and Ausgrid owns an easement that sits between the subject site and the public reserve, but it's just a mown space. It's not used for anything.
Right, so there's no fence that has to contain the Ausgrid equipment or anything?
No, they've advised us that they don't require fencing.
So thank you, Sam. That's responding to the additional conditions that some of the residents have requested. But and so thank you for that. But was there any of the recommended conditions that you have concern
about? Apologies. Look, I guess I'm not the planner involved in this, and if there's a council staff here, perhaps they might want to answer that question. But
Okay.
I don't think that we've got any problem with the other conditions.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
That concludes the 4 registered speakers on the matter. I mentioned earlier that the council has engaged an independent planner to actually prepare the assessment report that's before the panel. I'm hoping Ros is there. Yes, I can see Ros is there. Ros, did you have any comment you wish to make in response to the questions or submissions that have been made to the panel? You don't have to. I just want to give you the opportunity.
Yeah. My view would be in respect to the hours of operation, the same as Sam outlined. It is a public facility. I think reducing the hours has the potential to restrict the purpose for which it's to be constructed. And I'm also concerned that reducing the numbers it will have a similar effect. I don't know that there's that much else I need to add.
You've recommended that there be a plan of management prepared and implemented. Can you outline the sorts of matters that you would see being included in that? And if you're able to, advise us whether there is currently any plan of management controlling the existing facility, and perhaps in particular what opportunity there is for input to the plan of management by local residents, either initially or on an ongoing basis. I guess complaints.
There is a plan of management that operates over a wide span of council facilities such as this. It's not specific to this site. I think that it would be appropriate for this site to have a specific plan of management. It is in a residential area. I think that should include the sorts of things like ensuring that pack up occurs prior to the expiration of the 9 p.m, for instance. No smoking, the general I've probably written a wonderful thing about it, but
it's fairly common for a plan of management to have a complaints procedure.
Yes, that should occur.
And a record of any complaints received and what action was taken.
Yes.
So you would envisage that being part of a plan of management?
I would, yes.
Okay.
Just one further question on that. Yeah, just one further question, Ros, on you said no smoking. I don't know. Is alcohol allowed in community halls?
My recollection is that it is allowed. I'm not sure whether Frank Coe may be able to assist me on that, or whether anyone else from council, but if you give me 2 ticks, I might be able to find the general plan of management.
We have a Sharon Plunkett holding her hand up. Sharon, can you?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, Sharon Plunkett from Randwick Council. I'm the Manager of Community Facilities, the Council's property manager. With regards to the question of alcohol, yes, it is permissible in Council's community halls. We do put additional controls in place. So with an application for use of a hall, there's a declaration that's required to be completed to advise whether there is alcohol to be consumed. And if so, we have a risk matrix which assesses the level of risks and the controls that need to be incorporated based on the time of the event, the size of the event, and the nature of the event. So those controls may include additional bonds up to a sum of $5,000, proof of my night notification to the local police and area command, proof of a RSA or a liquor license, and or security guard services. So we also have on-call staff assigned to respond to any concerns or any issues, and hirers are required to complete terms and conditions. They're advised at the time of hiring of emergency contact details. Our number for the after hours service is also provided on signage on site and to the hirer. And yeah, that's how we're able to control the service or the consumption of alcohol on venues.
Thank you. And I suppose, yep.
Sorry, please proceed. Keep going.
No, you go. Yep.
Was there another question? Sorry.
I had a question for Sam.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Sure.
Sam, sorry, I meant to ask this before, but at the basis of a lot of the concerns from local residents is the issue of social behaviour and criminality and so on. Looking at the plan, well, I shouldn't make this assumption, but I will assume that sight lines into the site from the public realm was an issue, was a factor in your design approach. It certainly seems to be that with the exception of the narrow space between the property and number 5 Pozieres Avenue, that there is quite good visual accessibility into the site. And I noticed that in that restricted area there, you've got a fence.
We do.
Yeah,
that area is fenced off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yes, you're right. I mean, the thinking was to maintain large areas of open space around the building, with the exception of that fenced off area which is 3 metres wide between the building and the boundary. So there's maximum surveillance of the site from all directions. Okay.
I mean, if you weren't on a corner site, you would have had much more of a challenge, of course.
Yeah, we would. You're right. And it might have meant that we would fence off the back of the building, for instance, like as we've done in this case. Can I just add something in terms of fencing off and antisocial behaviour? Given that any fence has a gate and people using the facility can move in through that gate, if there is antisocial behaviour, it can happen in the street. It's not necessarily going to happen someone climbing, around the back of the building, particularly in this case when there is no rear face to the building that's accessible.
Thank you. Any, Jan? Yes.
Yeah, just one quick question of Sam, and that's in respect of, I presume park rangers are contactable 24/7 or whenever this facility would be open. So if local residents had any concerns, they could ring the Sharon. I'm sorry.
Sharon.
Sharon. Yeah. Sharon, can they ring the park ranger?
We have a 1300 number that's signposted on the building, and we have designated after hours staff that will respond. We have after hours service that will answer the call, and they'll allocate that call to staff that will attend. So they're not rangers. They're our operational staff will attend.
Oh, operational staff. Okay, so if residents have a concern, they have got direct line to. Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Good. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
I had a question for Sharon.
Yes.
Sharon, can you tell me the opening hours of the Kensington Community Hall?
Yes, I can. They are on our website and on the whole hire application, and they are 8 till 9 Monday to Sunday, 8 a.m. till 9 p.m.
And from experience, what sort of activities happen at Kensington?
We have the regular bookings that we have are, sorry, I'm just looking at my spreadsheets.
Thank you.
Kensington, we have Tutu Studios. That's a child's dance class. Mission Australia, we've got Karatani. There's a local residents group. There's a church group, Taekwondo, Mission Australia, Speed of Light, that's a spiritualist church, a Sing Up Choir, a group that practice singing, and yeah, that's about it. They're the regular hires. Then we have birthday parties
Kids'
and
birthday parties.
kids' birthday parties, yes.
Thank you. Ros, I saw you had your hand up too, but before we move to you, I've noticed that. But Sharon, there was reference to Burney Park Community Centre, the hours there. Is that the Kensington one?
And
Sorry.
No.
Burney Park Community Centre is also on our website, and it is 9 a.m. to 8:15 p.m. Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sunday 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
8:15 is an unusual time to choose. Is there a history there? Or?
There was a history of a very vocal neighbouring property that had lived there for a long time and had some concerns about it. The hall is really accommodating for small children who I guess like to get very loud and scream on the playground equipment and that type of thing. So that was the reason that those hours were set, not because they were in a DA.
Okay.
So setting of those times or the hours would be based on development conditions initially, but they're all consistent apart from Burney Park.
Okay, and I'd take the opportunity to ask you the question asked of Sam, and that is whether you as the applicant, the proponent, have any concerns with the conditions that are recommended that you wanted to raise with us. I should say for the record that we've had no discussions with Sharon or Sam or anybody else associated with the application up until this public meeting. We have had a discussion with Ros, the independent assessment planner, but no discussions with them. So Sharon, is there any conditions that concern you?
I don't have any concerns about conditions. I'd refer to my colleagues who have been involved in the planning of this, and that might be Hayley or Sarah, but I haven't got any concerns.
All right. Ros, you had your hand up earlier to make a comment or?
Yes, the condition 62 includes a plan of management to be submitted prior to occupation and use, and that is generally to adopt the recommendations which are written in the acoustic report, and to also include aspects to limit antisocial behaviour, and also to respond to residents' complaints. So.
Okay, thank you for that. I just saw on my screen Hayley has her hand up. Hayley, sorry, who are you?
Yes, that's right. So my name's Hayley Segadin. I'm the coordinator of major projects planning at Randwick Council.
Thank you.
And responsible for the delivery of the planning of this project. To answer the question regarding the DA conditions, so no, we don't have any concerns about the DA conditions in their current form.
Thank you, Hayley. Unless there's any further questions from panel members, and I'm not seeing any, that effectively covers all of the registered speakers that we have listed and a few non-registered speakers, so I thank you all for your assistance. In accordance with the panel guidelines, the public meeting will now be closed and the panel will move to a further closed meeting to deliberate and vote on this matter. And in fact, there's some 6 other matters on our non-public agenda. The outcome and voting and determination on all the matters will be available through the council website, either late tonight or tomorrow, I expect. And a recording of this public meeting is also available through the website. Can I thank the council staff and their consultants and all of the speakers for their assistance with today's meeting.